Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Liz and this is Let's Get Lizical, where we do everything card making. Today I'm doing a bit of a bonus video inspired by Kate over at Kate Crafts. I'll link her channel down below, and I'm going to be showing you how to color with colored pencils, or pencil crayons. I call them pencil crayons because I'm Canadian. So I'm just going to take an image from MFT, from this elephant stamp set. I'm just going to be using grays today because it'll be easier. And I did invest into the cool grays from Copics because I do use cool gray markers a lot, and I just needed something that would last me a while, and then there were refills for it. So I did get the 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So I'll be using the same kind of colors from my Prismacolors. I'm going to be using cool gray 10, 30, 50, 70, and 90. Potentially. I don't know if I'll use all 5, but I might use at least 3 of them. I don't tend to use too many colors when I'm coloring. I don't think it's necessary to be using any more than like 2 or 3. Some people like to get that solid blend that looks seamless, but me, I like almost like cell shading. It's kind of in between a blended look and a cell shaded look, where like I leave solid lines, but that's just my preference. And I'm just gonna stamp out this little guy here, and I just cut a 4 1/4 inch square card so that I could stamp him, rotate it, and stamp it again. And then at the end I'll like lay them all out in a line to show you how they differ from one another. So I'm just gonna start by speeding through this, and I'll stamp out 4 of these. Back here so I don't get ink all over my foam pad. I'll leave that for now because, you know, we're gonna restamp those afterwards. So I'm gonna be doing 4 different things. I'm gonna be doing one that's all pencil crayon, one that's pencil crayon with a blended pencil, one that's blended with a colorless blender marker, and then I'll do one where it's a Copic base with shading done in colored pencil, which is one of the methods I prefer. When you're working with colored pencils, I think I'm probably not going to use the 10 or the 90. I think I'll just use these 3 colors. So I'm going to use the 3, 5, and 7. So I'm going to start off with my base color, and you just want to work in like small circular motions as much as possible. I know sometimes after a while I get a little lazy and I just go back and forth, but you also want to rotate your pencil as much as possible, because then it just gives you that like sharp edge. I've seen people where they like color this and then they rotate. That's just too much for me. I just like do it for a little while and then I will rotate it. You don't need to do 2 or 3 strokes and then rotate every time. But you just want to fill in like your main area, and because these are waxy based pencil crayons, they will cover your lines, which is why I will restamp them after. When you're restamping on top of Prismacolors though, because it is a bit waxy, I probably won't use my dye ink. I'll move to a pigment ink, which will sit on top instead of trying to soak in. And I'm just like, my circles tend to get bigger as I get, again, like I tend to get lazier as I color, just because this does take quite a bit of time compared to markers. But it is pretty like satisfactory, I think, because you get like the texture of a pencil crayon, which is nice, especially for animals that have a lot of texture in their skin. So like elephants and rhinos and stuff like that. Or you can even do like different strokes so that like it shows that it has fur. But I'm just gonna like color this normal for today, and then maybe in like future videos I'll show while I'm doing a different card, just like different techniques for different types of animals. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with my 30% cool gray, and I'm just gonna add in some shadow here and there. I generally follow a top left down light source when I'm coloring, almost always. So I'm always putting my shadows towards the bottom right. And again, you're just trying to do little circles, and you can grab your other pencil crayon and kind of like blend them together a bit. But you just kind of like want to go back and forth. I'm using hammer mill cardstock, which is pretty smooth, which is nice because then it doesn't take as much work to fill in all those like white areas. If you're using something with a little bit more texture, it could take a little bit longer to fill in the tooth of the paper. So I'm just gonna add in my lighter shadows. This is not 100% accurate for shading for sure, but this is just the way I color. And then I'm just gonna go around with my 30% cool gray again, just to help smooth that out. And then I will go in with my 50% cool gray and just go in the darker areas where things overlap. So like under his chin, where the trunk overlaps the body, where the arm is shadowed by the body, and then probably where his belly sticks out here, and a little bit inside the leg. And then maybe a tiny bit here. And then this one I'm pressing a little bit harder, but not too much. And then if you don't think that there's like enough contrast like elsewhere, like you can just add a very light layer. I wouldn't want to go too dark just because then you'll run into the problem where this and this is the same and it kind of doesn't differentiate the depth. So I'm just going to add a little bit very softly. I'm barely putting any pressure on this, and then I'm going to go back again with my 10 and just kind of blend out. The 10 I might use for the ears actually on the inside. I'm just going to sharpen this. I have the Prismacolor specific pencil sharpener, but I think I need a new one. This one's not as good anymore. But I do find that this works best with Prismacolor pencil crayons. Like, don't buy a dollar store one. And this one can give you two different like lengths of the lead. So it will do like a little stubby end, or it'll do a bit longer. I think this is the stubby version. Yeah, there's like little etchings here. So this one's like the little stubby one, which is the one I usually like to use. And then this one will give you like a longer point. Okay, and then when you want to shade in the ears, I would just go back to the 3 and add a little bit. Okay, so that's our first colored little elephant. And then I'm going to rotate and do the next one. So for this one, I'm going to use this burnishing. It's like no color. The number's PC1077. It's a bit small, but it helps push the pencil crayon into the cardstock to give it a bit of a smoother look. So I think for this one, I'm just going to speed through the coloring, and then I'll use this at the end, because once you use this, you can't start layering on top of it because you're kind of like smushing the paper. So I'll just speed through this and come back. So now we're done coloring the second one here. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna push pretty hard and just kind of like color over all of the areas. It does kind of like dull the color a bit, just because you're kind of like spreading it out and pushing it into the paper. So it almost like erases it a bit, I guess, in a sense. So you can kind of see how it lightens up, but you can see that it's a little bit smoother as well. And you can try adding like a little bit. It's really hard though to like get it to stick. And you do kind of want to follow the areas that you colored, so you see like I'm following the line here, because if you pull it out, you're just going to end up like with streaks of that darker color that kind of get brought out with this pencil. I'm forgetting the tail. I'm just going to color it with the 5 because it's in the back. Okay, but you can kind of, this one I would say has a little bit more of a watercolor look, I guess, because it does like kind of smooth the color out, but it also dulls it down. So it's almost like you used a watercolor marker and brought it out with the water. So that's what I would kind of like equate this method to. Just want to add a bit more just to give it a bit more of a round edge head. A little bit more depth. Okay, so that's using the burnishing pencil. And then for this next one, we're gonna do basically the same thing, but instead of using burnishing pencil, we're gonna use a colorless blender. This is just an Art and Fly one that I got off of Amazon with a set. It almost does the same thing as this, but it gives it a bit more of an even smoother look because the alcohol kind of breaks down the pencil crayon. And this method, I would say, looks even more like watercolor method, doing it this way. So again, I'll color this off camera and then I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I've colored this little guy in. Now I'm going to use the brush end of this colorless blender and blend out. I like to use swirling motions with this as well. And maybe don't use more expensive ones for this, because it will gum up your nibs. So I think using something like Ohuhu or these Art and Fly markers works pretty well. You don't want to ruin your expensive Copic markers for this. Okay, and then you can see how it smooths it out. Like this one, it does keep a little bit more of the depth, so I would probably prefer this method over the burnishing pencil crayon, because it does keep more of the color. It just kind of like smooths it out. This one still has a little bit more texture, which was just straight up pencil crayon. And then this next one we're gonna do is completely different. I'm going to use a Copic marker just to do the base layer, and then I'm gonna do all the shading in the pencil crayon. So I'm just going to start off with my C3 marker. These ones are a bit more blue than the Prismacolor pencil crayons, which is okay. But you can see how much faster, obviously, Copic's color in. And I am pretty excited to have some Copic grays now. They were pretty expensive. I should have just waited for them to go on sale, but I made the investment for the grays because I needed them. My other grays are getting a little low from the biannual ones that I have from Amazon. So I'm gonna let this dry for a few seconds. And then I'm gonna take my 50 that we were using before. You could decide to use other colors. Maybe you want to use like a purple to shade or a blue, since this is a bit of a cooler tone. But I'm gonna just leave this. And then on the top layer, you can choose to either leave it as is, or if you want, you could use like the burnishing pencil crayon, which is probably what I'll do just to help smooth it out. But like sometimes I like to just leave it like this because it gives it a bit more texture. You can also use that like same 3 that I've been using for the base and still go over the entire thing like this. But you just have to do a lot less work because you've got your base layer there with the marker. And then you're still getting that texture without having to do all the work. If you're in a hurry. If not, I would just probably prefer to do just the straight up pencil crayon. I'll leave his head as fully colored in, and then I'll leave his body as just shaded with the marker showing through, just to show you the difference. And this one I am pressing pretty hard when I do my darkest one, so it's kind of like burnishing as I go anyway for this. And I'm gonna add that little bit here and here. And then I'm gonna get my burnishing pencil crayon out again. Again, this is optional. Depends on what look you're going for. I'm just gonna do the whole thing here. And then this, you kind of just go around where you colored and then blend out a little bit, just to help soften those edges. Okay, so I think this one gives you obviously the smoothest transition, whether you're using it with the marker and the pencil crayon fully on top, or the marker with the pencil crayon just as a shading. I would say that they're all good depending on what you want to do with them, I guess, and what kind of look you're looking for. I would say I don't even know what my least favorite is. I like them all for whatever you're using them for. Sorry, I forgot to shade in his ears here. Okay, yeah, so again, if you're looking for a smoother look with a little bit of texture, I would go with the Copic base or alcohol marker, whatever alcohol markers you're using, and then just add a bit of shading with the pencil crayons. That way you only have to get, like, you don't need to have a full set of markers to do this, right? You could just buy your basics and then get a set of pencil crayons, which is obviously a lot cheaper, and then do your shading that way. This is the one with the colorless blender. So again, it gives you a bit more of that watercolor look without having to do watercolors if you're not good at them. I need to practice with watercolors, so right now this is a good option for me if I want that watercolor look. This one, again, is a nice softer look, and this is what we did with just the burnishing pencil crayon. And then this one is just the straight up pencil crayon. So I'm gonna re-stamp these, and then I will cut them out and lay them a long way so you can see them all kind of like at the same time. So I'm just gonna leave this in here. This is the, chances you take when you stamp and then color and then stamp again. If the cardstock's not exactly in the corner when you stamp it the first time, and it is the second time, or vice versa, it's gonna mess up like this. So you'll get these double lines. I'm just gonna quickly recolor this off screen, and then I will lay them out, and hopefully it gives this a chance to dry. You can probably see that it's still a bit shiny on the black areas, because again, it's sitting on like a wax-based pencil crayon, so it will take a bit longer for this to dry. So I will clean this off because I don't want to color on the pigment ink just because it takes too long. I'd rather color on my dye ink, and then I will come back and lay them out for you. Okay, so I was a little impatient and smudged a few of these, so I had to recolor a couple, but here is the pencil crayon version with nothing else, just straight up pencil crayon. This is the one with the burnishing. Something else I need to make note of is when you're using this burnishing tool, it does get some color on the end. So if you're switching between colors like a red or something, and then you go to do the gray, you might transfer some of the color. So you should just like scratch it off on a scrap piece of paper or wipe it off with a paper towel or something before you move on to the next color. And same with the alcohol marker version, which is a very similar look, but it allows you to keep a bit more of that depth. But the ends get dyed. So you just want to scribble as much of that color off as possible. And then I would recommend having maybe each end be a different color family. Like keep your reds on one nib, keep your blues and then greens on a different one, blacks and grays on a different one. Like this does come clean, but the tip will stay stained, but like you can see no colors coming out now, so I could use this for another color, but I just try not to mix, like go from like a gray to a red and then back again. I would just keep maybe reds and oranges in one, or keep your warm tones on one, your cool tones on another, and then one for your blacks and grays. And then this one is the one that we did Copic base. When I colored this the second time, I didn't color in the face because I would want it to keep it consistent with the pencil crayons. So this time I just colored the whole thing with the base layer Copic, then I did all the shading with the pencil crayons, and then went in with my burnishing pencil just to smooth it out a little bit. This one I did a little bit more of a cell shaded look, so like I have defined areas of shadow and it doesn't like blend in, it's just like a harsh line, which is the way I like to color things most of the time. But yeah, so those are 4 different methods you can use for your colored pencils. I would suggest straight up colored pencils if you want texture, or again you could do a base color of Copics and then pencil crayon on top. Just don't do the burnishing method on top, just like leave it straight up pencil crayon coloring just so you do get that texture, but you don't have to work so hard to fill in the tooth of the paper. So yeah, just some coloring tips for you guys for today. I'll be back again Friday with another video, and I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks again for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!